boys and ghouls? This is Jaime En Fuego for Enfuegotainment, and it is October 8th, and we are in the midst of my Tales from the Crypt coverage. Yes, this is part 8 of my basically going through the entire series of one of my most beloved anthology horror series, probably the tops of all time. And here on Enfuegotainment, where I cover the hottest entertainment with an edge, we basically always like to do the Bueno, the Malo, and the Feo. And so when I realized that there were 93 episodes of Tales from the Crypt in total, and 31 days in the month of October, what better way than to just do the Bueno, Malo, and the Feo once a day for this entire month and just knock it out like that, and it seemed almost brilliant to me. So yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. I'm not gonna dilly-dally. We've got many more episodes to cover in the coming days, so let's get right to it. The Bueno! Yes, that is right, amigos. The Bueno is actually an episode that I got to see back when I was a kid. I have not seen all of the Tales from the Crypt episodes, actually. I didn't even start seeing them until, what, I was at least 12, 11, 12, maybe something like that, because I didn't have cable as a kid. And that was the only way you could see these gore-tastic, turn to 11 anthology episodes, because, people had seen Monsters and The Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side, and, The Outer Limits and stuff like that, but the intent behind Tales from the Crypt was to have the sex and the gore and just the language and really make it a hard R, like really just show the grittiness that everybody had really always kind of expected from these type of stories. So the Bueno is one that I did see as a kid, as I mentioned, and it's called Television Terror. Yes, that's right. And it stars this crazy looking dude. His name is Morton Downey Jr., no relation to Robert, but yeah, back in the 80s, he was a very sensationalist kind of talk show host, almost like a mix between maybe like Geraldo and Jerry Springer, and he would scream, he would chain smoke, he was crazy right-wing, ironically enough, and yet, yeah, he's essentially playing himself to a T on this particular episode, and he's this host, and he's basically gonna go into a crazy old, like, rundown, boarded up the home in Los Angeles that is alleged to be haunted. It's been, it's been off limits, after all of these people were discovered murdered there by this woman who was kind of like a caretaker for the homeless, and what she was doing was poisoning and killing all of these different transients and throwing their bodies down, buried in the cellar, and then collecting their unemployment. Yeah, it was really, really cruel. Their social security, I think, is the proper term. So yeah, the episode was one that I loved so much as a kid because I think I've said a few times during these reviews that I always like when there's an element of supernatural involved, and this one was no exception, being in the Haunt of Fear, number 17. And so, the shock suspense stories cover more so like, I guess interpersonal things, and they don't have anything, outside the realm of reality, whereas, the Haunt of Fear and the Vault of Horror, and obviously the flagship under the EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt, those were all dealing with the spooktacular supernatural, and this is kind of a haunted house tale. It's almost like, it's doing stuff Shining style. There's an evil force, almost like a poltergeist within this place, and, they have like a psychic medium guy at the very beginning who's telling this crazy talk show host guy, they're like, don't go in there, man, don't go in there, because he's planning to do it live on TV, and he is such an a-hole that everybody hates him, man. Even, like, from his production assistants to the director to even the girl he's sleeping with, who's a part of the show too. So, yeah, he goes in with his trusty rock and roll cameraman, and he's just ready to wreak some havoc and, see what's really going down in this house if all of the rumblings are true. It gets gore-tastic, it's scary, it's funny, it is the epitome of a Bueno Tales from the Crypt episode, and whereas there's a few that I've watched since doing this that haven't held up to as wonderfully as I remembered them as a kid, and there's others that have been way better than I remembered as a kid, but this one has aged like fine wine. It still is very shocking and controversial, and I highly, highly recommend it. Yeah, that's right. So let's get into the Malo. Yes, we must always get to a bad episode of the show. And this one is called My Brother's Keeper. And it basically stars these two guys who are Siamese twins, and, apparently they can't actually get separated because it's like a high likelihood that, they would die in the operation. And the two brothers are played by the guy who was on Son of the Beach as the main lifeguard, that stupid show that Howard Stern produced that was like spoofing Baywatch back in the late 90s. Yeah, so he's one of them, ironically the good one. And then the bad one is the dude who was like the bodyguard, like servant for the main vampire in Fright Night. Yeah, so this falls into the criteria of a Tales from the Crypt episode that I just didn't really find that good for the sheer fact that it tried so much harder than it needed to. It was in the Shock Suspense Stories issue number 16, and you have the return of Peter S. Seaman and Jeffrey Price. You know, you saw them doing an episode earlier. It was the one with the crazy slash rocker guy who was stealing money and stuff like that. Well, so they bring this team back who you saw were behind Roger Rabbit and also did a few other, you know, late 80s, early 90s things, and they're basically a writing team that likes to switch off the directing chair. And so this time you have Seaman directing as opposed to Price, who did the rock and roll episode in season 2, and the humor falls short. I mean, it's not a bad episode. It's not as MALO as the MALO can get, but it's just kind of you know, it's not very memorable. The twist is kind of cool, especially, and you know, everybody knows there's always a twist on Tales from the Crypt, and I guess the one on this might be, yeah, you know, on second thought, no. It's got the MALO distinction, the bad distinction, because not even the twist could save this one. It's not as god-awful as a few others we've seen, but, yeah, My Brother's Keeper, at the end of the day, is merely forgettable. So, let's get into the Feo, the ugly guys. Yeah, that's right. And this one appeared in the pages of The Haunt of Fear as well, and it's called The Secret. And this one might have at least one of the most touted names associated with it, in the fact that it's a production designer by the name of Michael Riva, and he did production design for all kinds of things, from Halloween 2 to The Goonies, to he did Scrooged with Bill Murray, and he also did, most notably, The Color Purple, which he got an Academy Award nomination for. So the guy's got some clout. He went on to work on tons of other movies until he sadly passed away in the mid-2000s, but yeah, gotta say, the episode got the Feo distinction because I was thinking it was going to be MALO, I was thinking it was going to be bad, and it was pretty bad. The concept is this kid is at an orphanage and they're basically trying to get rid of him, and they don't explain as to why. He has some sort of secret, and the old woman who runs this place just wants to get rid of him oh so desperately. So she finally finds a family that is head over heels to take him in, and they start feeding them all this food, and you're kind of trying to figure out why. Is it like a Hansel and Gretel type thing? You know, what is the secret? Because the episode's called The Secret. Everyone's got secrets in this, and you know, it became the Feo because the secret was ugly and the secret was good. And obviously, being a non-spoilers, I cannot divulge what the secret was, but yeah, the payoff was good in this, when I didn't really necessarily think it was gonna be, and you really see how good of a production designer that Mr. Riva is in the finale when you finally figure out what some of these enshrouded in mystery details are. So yeah, I'd say The Secret, it started silly, but it finished strong, and so that's why it didn't get the MALO distinction. That instead went to My Brother's Keeper. So yeah, I gotta just leave it at that, guys, because we have so much more ground to cover and so little time to do it with doing one of these 3-episode installments every day. So I, Jaime En Fuego, want to extend a grande gracias to all of you viewers for tuning in. I've had so much fun with these particular, you know, just reminiscing in the horrific, and it's such a beloved show, and I'm being reminded why I loved it so much as a kid and why it still has held up so well. I really wish that anthology horror would make another return on, you know, the small screen, as opposed to, it's kind of made a slight resurgence, you know, on the big screen with stuff like VHS and, you know, the upcoming Tales of Halloween and things like that. So yeah, I would love to see another Tales from the Crypt feature film, but even more so, I would love to see, you know, they tried resurrecting Tales from the Dark Side recently, you know, with Joe Hill, Stephen King's kid, and didn't end up working out. So fingers firmly crossed. Who knows? Maybe we'll see Tales from the Crypt, all those rights issues that John Kassir was telling me about at Mad Monster this year, figured out. But you know, never say never, right? So once again, I'm Jaime En Fuego. You can find me at Jaime En Fuego on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and obviously here on YouTube. So please, if you dig the video, like, share, do that subscribe thing. Let's spread the word about this amazing show, Tales from the Crypt, that many youngsters might not know about. So once again, I extend the grande gracias, and I look forward to seeing all of you for more Tales from the Crypt coverage mañana.